What was your favorite moment of the Dana Holgorsen era at TCU? We'll reminisce next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform. We are brought to you today by Gametime. If you need tickets for a sporting event, theater show, comedy show, whatever the case is, check out the Gametime app today. One of the stories of the offseason was that Sonny Dykes brought in a couple former head coaches as analysts, and that's not a new trend, but one thing that Sonny did that was sort of his own spin on it was he put Dana Holgorsen, traditionally an offensive mind, right? Longtime offensive coordinator, offensive coach, air raid guy. He put him with the defense. He had him working with Andy Avalos and the defensive staff as an advanced scout. He had Todd Graham, former head coach, longtime defensive coach, working with the offense with Kendall Briles and that part of the team. And the idea was those guys could be advanced scouts. So Dana Holgorsen could scout opposing offenses. He could give you a really good report on what they're doing, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And he could also bounce ideas off Andy Avalos, be a sounding board for him. And, hey, what are we showing teams? What are we doing? What ideas do you think you could bring to the table? How would you attack these particular schemes? So that was the idea. And, I mean, during fall camp, it sounded cool. It sounded interesting. I thought it was good that Sonny was bringing people on board that had head coaching experience. Dana Holgorsen has left the program in the middle of the season. Yesterday, Pete Thamel had a report that Dana had moved on to Nebraska. I couldn't find the article, but I remember before the year there were some murmurs that he might be talking to Matt Rule and Nebraska. And Matt Rule says he's bringing Dana on as an extra set of eyes to help the offense. According to Thamel's report, Rule says his role will evolve as the season goes on. There's not that many weeks left in the season, so I don't know how much more it can evolve than what it's going to be, but basically Dana's going to get an opportunity to look at the Nebraska offense, give them some fresh ideas, give them a fresh set of eyes, and just evaluate what they're doing right now. They're struggling a little bit. Dylan Raiola, one of the top quarterbacks in the nation, true freshman, one of the top quarterbacks in last year's class coming out of high school, true freshman. They had a lot of hope and promise, and they've had some good moments, but ultimately struggling a little bit in the Big Ten, so he's been brought in to help them out. The timing is weird. I'll grant you that. It's very odd. And I saw some people yesterday kind of setting off some alarm bells on, hey, this is bizarre that your coach, one of your coaches would leave midseason. So I think there's a couple important things to remember here. I really feel like this is a nothing burger for the most part. I'm not saying it's good or it's positive, but I don't think it's a sky is falling situation or it's indicative of where the staff is, what their job security is, any of those things. I went back and I watched Dana Holgorsen spoke with the media one time during fall camp before the season started. And it was about 16 minutes of him just breaking down what he was doing. They had some questions about his time at West Virginia and battling TCU, the one season at Houston that he crossed paths with TCU when they were in the Big 12. One question he was asked from Mac Engel, from the 4-Star Telegram, longtime columnist there, was, hey, like, why didn't you just retire? Why would a guy like you not just go fishing? Or Dana's a dude that's been known to have a good time. He's got a vibe about him that he likes to party, and he is aware of where the nightlife is. So he didn't give the impression, at least to me, and I guess to other people, that he was the type of dude that you'd have to drag off the football field. And Dana was very honest. He said, well, first off, I have a contract, and part of my buyout agreement with Houston, he didn't use these words exactly, but kind of fill in the blanks here. Part of his buyout agreement with Houston is he has to have an offset, and he needs to seek employment. So he was seeking employment in the football industry like he has for years. Sonny Dykes and him are good friends. They used to coach together at Texas Tech. Sonny helped him out by bringing him in as an analyst to oversee and to help the defense. He also mentioned he thought it was really smart that he was working with the defense because nobody in the defensive staff room would be threatened. You're bringing in a big personality. You're bringing in a former head coach. But Andy Avalos is not worried about what Dana Holgorsen's aspirations are because he doesn't want to be a defensive coordinator, right? So that was an interesting idea. And then the thing that stood out to me the most as it pertains to today and the situation now is Dana said he had no game day responsibilities, which we've kind of come to know that so far. I mean, he's not working on Saturdays, he's not on the field on Saturdays. He's at practice, but he's not there on Saturday afternoons helping Sonny make decisions or breaking down scenarios with the defensive staff. And finally, he was basically like Sonny had kind of given him free reign to come and go as he pleases. So if he wanted to buckle down and burn the midnight oil and work crazy hours, then he could do that. But if he wanted, he said he could do all his work remote if he really wanted to. Like he could just get a laptop, cut up the film, write a scouting reports, and send the information to the coaching staff. Now, he said he wanted to be around the team. He wanted to be around the facility, the program. And Nick Saban kind of started this trend about a decade ago. I used to joke that he opened up the Nick Saban school for head coaches that want to learn how to coach good and do other things good too. And it was just this constant wheel of coaches rehab to a certain extent. It was like, hey, you had a bad experience at this school. You flamed out as a head coach. Come to Alabama, come to Tuscaloosa. You can observe what we do. You can gather information. You can figure out what you did right, what you did wrong, get some fresh ideas. But you can also help us by doing some scouting, being an extra set of eyes, being another voice in the room if we need ideas or if we need somebody to bounce ideas off of. And it was a really popular thing. And for a long time, that was an advantage that Alabama had. Kirby Smart took that philosophy to Georgia, and it was a huge advantage that those schools had because they had the resources and they were willing to pay these obscene budgets for these large coaching staffs. Now that there's no limits on coaching staffs, really, all of a sudden there's a big uptick around the country of people that, do this job. And the job itself isn't really pertinent on game day. Like there's nothing for Dana Holgorsen to do on Saturdays. He can do a lot of his work throughout the week. I can't say this definitively, but I would imagine he could have already just sent in all his reports for the last three opponents they're playing, right? Like he could have said, hey, here's what you get for Oklahoma State. Here's what you got for Arizona. Here's what you got for Cincinnati. I mean, I guess it kind of stinks that if something changes with their personnel over the next few weeks, like if suddenly a quarterback gets hurt and you have a new QB in there or something like that goes down, then you don't have him available to research and study. I mean, that seems like the type of job that would be good for him. Like, hey, we got a new quarterback in there. Can you go through his tape and kind of get a feel for what he does well and who he is? So that's not available to you now. But other than that, I don't really see where this is a huge loss. And just to be frank about it, like Richard Berry, who's a frequent listener and viewer, texted me yesterday, and he was like, I don't really think he was helping much. I guess I can't say that for sure, but I didn't see the effect of Dana Holgorsen on this team. And with the defense, it might just be as simple as we'll get in segment 2, we'll get into they're going to be without a few guys for another week on the interior defensive line. There's some talent deficiencies there that are just hard to scheme around and get around. But I talked about this yesterday briefly when I was doing like basically the basketball post-game show, TCU basketball, when their season opener. The one game this year that you thought, hey, maybe this guy could give us some really good insight was Houston, because even though they had a large roster turnover like you typically see now when head coaches change over, there were still some guys that he coached. Now, the person I would have been most interested in his perspective on was Donovan Smith, and by the time Donovan got there, or by the time Houston rolled around, they had made that switch at QB. So I guess it was sort of a mute point there. But by and large, like, it didn't look like he gave them any sort of advantage in that Houston game. Jim Norris chimed in on the YouTube comments yesterday and said, good point about Coach Holgorsen not helping much against Houston. I've always had a soft spot for him, though. The guy always seemed to wear his heart on his sleeve. Also, I remember the game where he patted Boykin. I think he gave him a high five. Yeah, he gave him a high five after he made an amazing run through half of his team, and he wanted to say good luck. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's hard feelings here. Like, good luck to Coach. I find him a really engaging and fun personality, too. I think he's one of those coaches that's good for college football because he's not an NFL coach. What I mean by that is most NFL coaches, historically are just very businesslike, and they live in the world of coach speak. Dana is a guy that is really out there, and he's very honest. And like I said earlier, he seems to enjoy his life, which is fine. I mean, all those things are good, but he's not going to be here any longer. He's moving on to Nebraska. And a lot of people have speculated, probably rightly so, the main reason for this move is there an opportunity for him to take an offensive coordinator job at Nebraska? Because the reality is he probably wasn't getting that type of gig here at TCU. And that's what Dana ultimately wants to do. He wants to be an OC, I would imagine, or he wants to be a head coach again. He said in that press conference, he's like, I don't think I'm done. I don't think I'm done being a ball coach. There's no doors that have closed. And for a lot of these guys, that's how it is. Even if they're not your traditional coach personality, this is still what they do and what they love and what they want to be around. I also remember Gary Patterson when he left Baylor, which was another weird situation because he left like right before the season started. He told my old co-host Matt Mosley, Matt might cringe a little bit or chuckle at me calling him my co-host. I was his producer, I guess is a better way to say it. But he told Matt Mosley on his radio show that he just felt like he had done everything that he could do. And I think that's one aspect of a lot of these new analyst jobs. And maybe it's just people are still trying to feel it out and get an idea of what it looks like and what they would be best at. But I think once the season starts, there's not a lot for these guys to be involved with unless the coach that they're working with is just very adamant that they want their feedback and need their help with preparation each and every week. But like Dana said, I mean, he felt like he could do a lot of his work remotely and could just kind of keep tabs on it from outside the facility if he wanted to. Now, he was around from time to time, I think because he wanted to be around Sonny and he wanted to be around the team, but that was just his personal choice. It wasn't a mandate because of the job. The only thing I'll say about this moving forward that I think Sonny has to get a read on, and only he can answer this question because I don't know what the ins and outs were of hiring Dana and really what his responsibilities were outside of doing some advanced scouting. This doesn't need to become a place where we're just giving life rafts to our friends for no reason. And I'm not even saying that's the case with Dana. I don't think he was super helpful, but I'm not in the facility every day, so I guess I can't say that with 100% certainty. I do worry, though. You know, one of the issues late in Gary's tenure was that it just kind of became this system where he was keeping his friends around, and he was extremely loyal, which is a great quality in life, right? I mean, pretty much every other aspect of your life, loyalty is fantastic. But in the world of high-stakes college football, where people have to get the job done, there were times where it felt like he needed to move on from somebody, and he couldn't do it. And ultimately, this hire, both Dana Holgorsen and Todd Graham, it's just an off-the-field analyst position. But those jobs still mean something. And if there's somebody else out there that you don't have a personal relationship with that could be more helpful, then I just think you have to be in tune with the idea of what is going to help us win. Not let me use this place and this platform to make sure that I'm taking care of some of my old friends. So, again, that's only a question that he can answer. I just don't want to get in the habit of like, hey, let's get the band back together. And you got to bring in people that are going to challenge you. And I don't know who on this staff right now is really challenging the idea of, okay, how do we get tougher? How do we get more physical? And that's not really Dana's background either. He's an air raid guy like Sonny is. But I believe there has to be an evaluation of who are we bringing on staff and how are they improving the brand and the roster and the actual trajectory of the team. But Dana Holgorsen moving on to Nebraska. We'll keep tabs on that story if anything else develops. When we come back, Sonny Dykes had his press conference yesterday. He gave an update on some health and some availability for some guys on the D-line. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Do need to give an opportunity for some of our great sponsors, though. Hims, guys, if you're worried about your health, if you're not feeling like yourself, Hims is a great thing to try. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized treatment options. It's a virtual visit with a doctor, so you don't have to go through, crazy, uncomfortable in-person visits with your normal PCP. No insurance is needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers. Hims can help you find the option that works for you. Hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are a chewable compound product, which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA, and prescriptions do require an online consultation with a healthcare professional who will determine what plan is best for you. Also want to mention FanDuel. FanDuel is where the game starts. Big NFL weekend coming up again. You can get involved on FanDuel. One $5 bet. If you win that bet, you get $100 in bonus bets. Again, that's one $5 bet. Get you $100 in bonus bets. Do not bet on the Dallas Cowboys. They're a crazy organization. Cooper Rush having to have to step in for Dak Prescott, it looks like, as Dak is supposedly going to go on the IR, according to Jerry Jones. But you can bet on other teams at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. One $5 winning bet gets you $150 in bonus bets. Sonny Dykes held his weekly press conference on Tuesday. Oklahoma State is 0-6 in conference play. That's wild, man. I mean, they've had up and down seasons. And the criticism of Gundy is that he just struggles to win conference titles. He struggled in Bedlam situations, even though they did win that last Bedlam matchup last season. They were unexpectedly really good last year. They found something with Ollie Gordon in that defense, but this year defense has really struggled. Alan Bowman in year 19 of being a quarterback, that's somewhat of an exaggeration, but not much. He's their starter. They've had some injuries to Garrett Rangel and Zane Flores, their other QBs. Ollie Gordon is not having the year that he was predicted to have. And so it's resulted in a team that is 0-6 in conference play, and they're rolling into Fort Worth on a 6-game losing streak, which is pretty crazy. But maybe an opportunity for them this week with a banged-up TCU defensive line. Sonny Dykes said that Marcus Deal and Hakeem Ajibalaiba, who those two guys have really become the starters on that interior D-line, they are out with injuries, which is not great news because you remember what happened against Baylor last week. Bryson Washington, they got downhill. They started attacking that TCU defense and that TCU D-line, specifically that front seven, and had a ton of success running the ball. That means Timon Mitchell, Caleb Fox, a lot of responsibility on them. Connor Lindgren, young player, number 75, who's been playing some lately. He'll also be asked to step in and mix it up in there. And past that, I really don't – I mean, Sterling Brooks is a true freshman from North Crowley. I don't know if they're going to try to throw him in there, at least for a few snaps, to give those guys a spell and just to give the Oklahoma State offensive line another look. But there's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, it's not good news. I think Andy Avalos is really going to have to sell out to stop the run game and dare Alan Bowman to beat them through the air, because Bowman's having a tough season so far. Now, Brennan Presley, one of their wideouts, is having another really good year, very experienced player. So matching up with him in one-on-one coverage doesn't sound ideal, but I just don't believe you can sit back and allow them to dictate things on the ground, which is what they want to do. And this is a team that's had some competitive games. I mean, they lost to Utah 22-19. They lost to BYU 38-35 on that crazy, last-second pass play. They did get destroyed by Arizona State last week at home, and it's in Fort Worth, so I feel good about all those things. But I think there will be a lot of pressure on this offense this week to score. And even though this offense has been productive, they haven't always been consistent at putting pressure on opposing teams. They'll go through these lulls. They'll turn the ball over occasionally. I do think if Josh Hoover plays like he did last week, then they'll be in good shape. And there's hay to be made against this Oklahoma State defense. They've had a lot of issues. I'm going to talk with Cody Stovall, who hosts Locked On Pokes, tomorrow. We'll have him on tomorrow's show in a crossover edition. we'll get some more insight. But a lot of pressure on this D-line and pressure on this defensive staff. You got to find something that'll work. I mean, I know it's really tough to scheme when you're getting beat up front, but I just think you have to bring extra numbers and force them into situations where they have to throw the ball, because you can't allow Oklahoma State to just dictate this game by running it. And Ollie Gordon, I mean, you look at his game log, he's only had one game this season where he's gone, 2 games this year where he's gone over 100 yards, 107 at BYU, 126 at San Diego State. But for the most part, he's been held in check. So this Oklahoma State offensive line has not been the road graders that they thought they would be. But TCU's defensive line is in rough shape. So hopefully those guys are back. You get a bye week after this game. You can survive, get bowl eligible, get a bye week before you play Arizona. Maybe you're in a better situation depth-wise. Not great news, though, on the injury front from Sonny Dykes yesterday. When we come back, we'll get some of your reaction. Also, TCU men's basketball. They played last night and got their first victory, so they are 1-0. We'll talk about Haley Van Lith and company coming up next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day. Need to mention the Gametime app. Gametime, best place to buy tickets. A couple things I love about Gametime. They tell you exactly what the fees are going to be. There's fees, don't get me wrong, but they let you know what it's going to be before you click to purchase, so you don't get to check out and suddenly it's like, why is there an extra $30 on my bill? You can get $20 off by using the promo code LOCKEDONCollege with your first purchase. Again, Locked On College, your first purchase, you get $20 off. Also, they show you a picture of what your view is going to be from your seat, so you know exactly where you're sitting, what you're looking at when you get there. Gametime. Download the app today. ZBiotics, their new probiotic drink that helps you beat that hangover. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And then step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Be ready to get up early with your kids the next day, if that's your situation, and wrestle with them at 7 a.m. on a Saturday like they love to do, or at least my 3-year-old loves to do that. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. ZBiotics, a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. TCU men's basketball, Mark Campbell and company. They took the court for the first time yesterday against Houston Christian. It was a rough start to the game. They were only up 10-6 at halftime, but eventually pulled away, and they won that ball game 78-41. Haley Van Lith had a very efficient night, 21 points, 6 steals, and 7 assists. Was doing everything at that point guard position, had the ball in her hands a lot, which is what she wanted coming over from LSU. Felt like she had kind of gotten away with that with what Kim Mulkey was asking her to do. Sedona Prince was also very effective, 29 points in 30 minutes. So great effort by them, great start to the season. Maddie Shear was out with an injury, so that's something to watch. Defensively, I thought that they played really well. But all in all, after that first quarter, really nice job by this team taking care of business. It is fascinating to watch. If you didn't know, I mean, Haley Van Lith, like Maddie Shear, Sedona Prince, even to a certain extent, they have big followings on social media. And I was just on Instagram last night. Like ESPN was showing highlights from Haley's first game. It's crazy how much Mark Campbell has enhanced the brand of this team in a short time. They get New Orleans on Sunday at 2 p.m. at home, and then Texas State. And then they play NC State on November 17th, a couple Sundays from now. So that'll be a big matchup against a team that was in the Final Four last year. Very good program that NC State has built there. Get excited for TCU basketball. They're going to be a fun team this year, and I'm ready to watch them play. Some of you had questions about the men's team from yesterday. Jacob Langford said, hard to know how good the Hoops team is with that win, but it's great to see they didn't struggle against a team they should beat, so slightly hopeful. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that was my main takeaway from the game against Florida A&M. It was never in doubt. They just ran away with it. They took care of their business. and they shot the ball really well. I thought the offense looked a lot smoother. So those were the two things that stood out to me as big-time positives. Frog fan said he's concerned about Trezarian White. He's not had a lot of production as predicted between the Arkansas scrimmage and the first game of the year. I've noticed that too. I thought he'd be more of a factor, but I think it's so hard to tell this early in the year, especially when you're talking about a totally new group of players that are trying to mesh together. He's just got to kind of find his vibe in the offense. And I would also say at the power forward spot, it's a little tougher because guards, they're going to have the ball in their hands a lot. But Trey's going to have to, work in the mid post or bounce outside or go in the low post to get those touches and get those opportunities. I think the key is just capitalizing when he does, and then the ball's going to come his way more. But with Frankie Collins and Noah Reynolds, who seem to be pretty willing distributors, if he's open and he's ready to run the floor, then I think there'll be opportunities for him to finish around the rim. And that should translate well with what he did at UNC Wilmington. We'll be back tomorrow with a crossover edition of Locked On Horned Frogs and Locked On Pokes. It's your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.